A big move is coming. Are you ready? Because if not, the notes are really simple. There's only two things. Over 610, if in doubt, buy the dip. And we're likely going to go higher. Do we hold? Because as of right now, if we go to the NASDAQ, we actually formed a new record high. That's right. Last week, 574.63. What do we have this week? New all-time high. That's right. If chips lead tech and tech lead SPY, that means the S&P 500 is going to be going to the stairway to heaven or new all-time highs. But does it hold? That's the question for this week. And very simply put, if you're not ready, in 2 minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know. Right now, the market is easy. As a reminder, easy dollars are better than hard pennies because 100 pennies makes $1. So if we have easy dollars, it's better than hard pennies. And this is because we're now into an easy dollar environment, not bull or bear. It's just basically new all-time highs. If we're in new all-time highs, assume you want to buy the dip. What does that mean? BTFD or BTMFD, whatever you want to decide. This week's stocks went up. That's right, they did go higher. Most stocks are up this week, except for those skinny stocks like Eli Lilly, which is down by 16%. And right now, there's $7 trillion sitting in money market funds, and that is bullish for stocks. Why? Are you feeling a little bit of greed? Maybe a little bit of FOMO? Well, don't worry. It's not bad. Why? Because greed is good. That's right. As Gordon Gekko told us in this famous movie, greed is good and green makes the lines go up. So if we're only at 59, what happens if we go to 60, 70, 80, or maybe even 100? That's right. It might sound a little bit crazy, but we've not actually made it into extreme greed and sustained it for quite some time. And with ChatGPT 5 and a lot of things at play, there are some really big things happening this week. In just about 2 minutes here, I'm going to round it out. European leaders want to meet with Trump. Why? Well, because he's meeting with Putin on Friday, and they might decide what's going to happen to Europe, and they might not have a say. That's what's really important here. And then in terms of notes this week, here you go. What do we have? As of this week, we're neutral because we have an inside bar, which means we're inside the range from the previous week. But as I just showed you before, the NASDAQ is already in new all-time highs. So I would have to assume the S&P is going to follow. And by closing at or near the high of the candle, we're likely going to form a higher high. The question is, do we hold it? The question is, does smart money, normally smart, FOMO into stocks or get a little bit of greed? Here's where it gets a little bit interesting. So as I mentioned before, if we close at or near the high of a candle, it just means there's basically pressure building up, pressure building up, pressure building up. What happens? The pressure usually releases, which means we're going to go higher. But on a weekly chart, we have Monday all the way into Friday. What's going to happen this week? Well, it's right here. We're in fully bully boomtown buy all dips. We have green on the daily, green on the monthly, quarterly, and annual. But for the weekly, this is the question. We're following closing at the high of the week. The question is, are we actually going to hold it into Friday? Because if we hold it into Friday, that means that we're actually going to go back to being bullish. We will have printed the higher high, we will have closed above it, and then done it again. That's really what I'm looking at here. This week's a little bit tricky because, like I said, last week, we actually have a bearish engulfing candle. So by default, what I'm really noting here is that we're going into an inside bar. An inside bar just means indecision. So indecision within an uptrend or indecision versus the previous candle. That's the easiest way I can try to explain it. If on Friday we're over 640 or into a weekly higher high, because last week was the all-time high, well, that means that on all time frames, we're going back to being fully bullish. We're going to go back to being green on the daily, the weekly, the monthly, the quarterly, and the annual. And as long as we're above 610, it's a buy the dip environment. Why is 610 so important? Let me show you. Let me go back here to my lines. Let me make sure I don't miss anything. Let's go delete. Let's go to 1 to 12-month candle. Why? Well, last year, 609.07 is the all-time high. So we have expansionary candles here by going back to our bullish recipe. So what do we have? Hey, I know that sounds like really simple, but trading should be only giving you a couple of best practices. Otherwise, they're not really best practices. If you want to see if the chart is bullish, hey, it's pretty easy. These things tell you momentum, but purely based on price action. Here's what we have. Higher high going into 2024. Yeah, close at or near the high in 2021. We actually got a higher high, led to a failed breakout, led to a bearish engulfing candle. Yes, higher high, lower low. Because if we look here, 479 looking to the H, and then the following year, 479.98. Isn't that what we just did on the weekly? Yeah, it is. Bearish engulfing. So we have a higher high, we have a lower low, we come all the way back up. Do we hold it? Yeah, I know. It sounds like really tricky, but at the end of the day, if you would have looked here and said, oh, well, blue skies are bullish. And that's exactly what our note says this weekend. So if you need to look through this for a minute here, I encourage you to do so. At the same time, I would encourage you to please smash a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel. Thank you ahead of time. So if we get back to all four on the weekly chart, it means that we're in fully bully boomtown, buy all dips, right? New all-time high. And the green candle man says buy. However, if we close 2 or 3% lower, that means that SH and PSQ are likely going to be giving us alerts. So as of right now, PSQ and SH is basically our insurance. And it tells us that we are bullish and due for an alert within one candle. What's one candle? On Friday. On Friday would mean that if on Friday we close down by negative 2 or 3%, that's what it shows us here. Close red by 2 or 3%, we got a risk reward of 4.95 to 1 and 4.37 to 1. Those are excellent. So here are the key dates. Sorry, here's the technical analysis. Here's the key dates. It's pretty light. So it's really Tuesday and Thursday, but look at Friday. There's a meeting happening. What's going to happen? Is the world going to finally get some peace? Is Trump going to get what he wanted? I don't know. In terms of economic data, here's what matters. On Tuesday and Thursday, we have CPI and PPI. So notably, if we look here to the CPI, it's going to be a little bit hotter on a month over month. That's going to be here at the core, which is what the Fed cares about more. But Jerome Powell's already basically fired. So does this data really matter? It matters less. It's not that it doesn't matter. On a headline or year over year, we're going to go from 2.7 to 2.8. That's a higher high. That's bullish. If we want the stocks to go up because of interest rates going down, we don't want to see this. But you can slice the data however you want. If we look forward to Friday, this is where producers produce and consumers consume. Producer price index is PPI. Consumer price index is CPI. So if into next month or the month of August, producers are producing stuff, we're going to be buying it or consuming it into August. This is a leading indicator. So if it goes to 0.2 from 0.0, it likely means inflation is going to remain higher into the month of August. But if Jerome Powell's fired, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, our algo says that as of right now, we have a 4.37 to 1 and 5 to 1 for both PSQ and SH. I like those alerts. So what's the note for this week? Well, we're basically 93% cash. We're not going to likely do very much this week. So if SH or PSQ alert, we're going to order them and be either hedged or be net short. I'll show you what that looks like here because maybe a little bit of context would help. These are our open positions. And as of right now, we're currently 96% cash. We have 3% in SOXX, which is our hedge. And then we got 1% in Donut, 1% in SEDG, 1% in Wolf, and 1% in BW, which basically means that we're hedged with massive gains on the year. So what does that mean? Let's read the note. We're going to either order these things or not. Otherwise, we do nothing. So enjoy the week because we don't have any decisions to make until Friday. That's for the trade account. For the 401k account, there's one stock that's going to get fired. That's going to be ON. Why? Because it broke support. And I would not rebuy it fresh right now, which means that it's still going to be a positive trade. And I would consider that to be a win. That's my notes for this week, which means I don't really have to do anything until this next Friday coming ahead. I can enjoy the week. I'm going to assume there's easy dollars. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you the one pattern that we looked at here, which was our guide. So what I said was, if you remember, again, go back and watch the videos from this week if you want to. I talked about how there's a crescendo here. And if you're watching all the way until the end, I will make this last 1 minute very valuable. We talked about how there's a crescendo, an apex, right? There's a climax, capitulation right here. What does it do? It literally points to the candle that should be the bottom. So right here, the climax is the bottom. What do we do? Low, higher, low, higher, low, higher, low, higher, low, higher, low. During the week, what I said on these days was that by closing at or near the low of the candle, it implies or infers or means it's likely we're going to print a lower low. We never did it though. We kept going up. On ES or overnight, we did print lower. But for SPY, it's only higher lows. In every single day, we formed a higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. We did it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row. I would call that progress. That's right. So if now we just revert back to the weekly chart. Isn't that kind of what we talked about here? Yes, it is. Let's look back to our note because you might have missed it. I might have forgotten to mention this here. So was that a trap? Right? So SPY 1 week engulfing candle versus SPY in the 1 day. We talked about 8 higher lows after the engulfing candle. Was that after a 1 candle trap? That should say after 1 candle trap. That's what that should say. Not bracket 1. There we go. After a 1 candle trap. What does that mean? Let's go back to our daily chart. If you remember here, what I talked about was this. I'm going to remind you because sometimes people forget, and this is for me too. I'm trying to remind myself. If we go here to our bullish engulfing candle, by definition, it means higher high, lower low. At one point during this day, the bears were correct on July 23rd. Why? We were in a lower low below the low. That's right, bearish. It looked like we were topping out below our previous all-time high. But since then, we formed an engulfing candle, and we formed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 higher lows until we formed 1 lower low, but ultimately went higher. So from this period right here, like if we look back in time, look how many candles got printed. It's a lot. So right here, from this time, we now have a total of 33 candles. What did we do? We ultimately had a really bullish period where we went to new all-time highs, and then we formed higher lows and higher highs so far. If we continue to go higher, like the note says at 640, it's fully bully boomtown, buy all dips. Don't fight it. It's easy. So 33 candles. Okay, wait. 33 candles from the time we formed that bullish engulfing weekly candle. What happened? Well, let's extrapolate it out. From this time right here, 33 candles. Where does that get us? That's like a long time from now. Yep. That gets us to 2026. Could we be bullish until 2026? Yeah, we can. I don't see why not. Can we do the same thing as here? Well, extrapolate it out. We're like a lot higher. Look how much higher these candles go. This is where I think we are right now. That's what my note implies right here. That's what this means. Pause if you need to, because it's all green except for this one right here. So if we go back to green, it means higher breather, higher breather, higher. That's right. Maybe charts are going to go higher. Maybe you want to subscribe and come hang out tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. If not, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.